So for the last almost 33 years, Maitri has been a free, confidential, nonprofit organization located here in the San Francisco Bay Area. We work primarily with families and individuals from the South Asian diaspora and the countries, individuals and families who face domestic violence, emotional abuse, cultural alienation, or family conflict. In these last almost 33 years, we have been instrumental in assisting the changing of immigration laws that empower survivors. We run a helpline, which is live Monday through Friday. We created the first of its kind transitional home for survivors. We have a powerful outreach and prevention program. The screening of this film and the panel is a part of this program. We also have many other services, including peer counseling, legal referral program, etc. So I request, if you are interested in learning about what Maitri does and how you or somebody you know could be helped, please visit Maitri, MAITRI.org for more information and provide referrals to friends or family or people you know who may need our assistance.
Mine.
Maji.
Maafi for what? We have an appointment. I don't want to miss it.
Bas, chalo.
Chalo.
Chalo! I never want to be pregnant again. मैं सुनील को पास तक नहीं आने दूंगी. कौन कहेंगे? Those men who drive their wives and daughters to the abortion clinic?
How is everything going to be fine?
You forget about this soon.
Are you crazy?
Despite the technical difficulties, this is the second time I've seen this film, and I have to say I had so many triggers going off. And I know you and I talked before we started that it's very emotional for you, even though you made the film, you wrote the script, you acted in it. And it's a really powerful reminder of the challenges, the ironies of South Asian gender problems. So I want to ask you that what made you, I know you like to make movies on social impact, but what made you pick this particular topic? Because there's hundreds of topics on social impact and gender. So I'd love to hear from you what made you choose this topic, and maybe you can share a little bit of the research you did that resulted in this film.
Sure. You know, I had gone to my OBGYN for a routine appointment, and she's an Indian lady. And she said that she was having a very challenging day, yet another challenging day that day, because she had a Indian patient who wanted desperately to find out if she was pregnant with a boy. And since this was her third child and she has two girls, my doctor was hesitant to do her ultrasound because she said that if it's a girl, Rashmi, it's gone. And my jaw dropped. I was like, what do you mean it's gone? She said, she will go have an abortion because I've met the family. The family's sitting out there in the waiting room. I know the pressure this woman has. And perhaps it was not even her first time that she was going to have an abortion. And I said, oh my God, this is America. This is 21st century. And she said, this happens frequently. And that she's so frustrated. And that she urged me, she said, you're a storyteller, you're a filmmaker, why don't you make a documentary on this? So my original thought was to make a documentary, and I tried to interview people, nobody wanted to talk. Then I interviewed a bunch of OBGYNs, and they had similar stories. In fact, the actor who plays my husband is a OBGYN, has a clinic. We shot in his clinic. He was generous enough to let us shoot in his clinic. And he said that I even tell my patients that, look, I do in vitro fertilization where I cannot 100% guarantee a boy, but if you so desperately want a boy, we can even go that route. Just don't. And they say, and he said that the husband and wife will sit there, and the husband will say, no, it's okay, she can have another abortion. It's okay. And these are not people who can't afford this. So they have a choice. I mean, in this 21st century, they do have a choice if they so desperately must have a boy, but they don't want to exercise that either. So he was just as upset. My friend who plays the OBGYN in the clinic is also actually Sudha Reddy is also an OBGYN, and she had similar stories, and she doesn't have a private practice. She works for Kaiser. Anyway, so then I said, I have to tell the story. I have 3 daughters. I grew up with 4 sisters. The story, I wanted it to have a positive message, and I wanted to for the mother-in-law to understand, be a woman for once, and understand the plight of the daughter-in-law, because Bollywood portrays mother-in-laws as always as bad people.
So yeah, no, I think this is really, really, truly amazing, and your insights. And I want to set the stage to tell people, you're talking about the Bay Area, Northern California, correct? Considered to be one of the wealthiest parts of the world, not just the US. And if California was its own country, it would be the 7th largest economy in the world. So we are not really talking about people who perhaps come out of underprivileged or rural areas where there may be a different kind of pressure to have a boy, yes, to have a male child. And you talked about one interesting thing, that nobody wanted to talk to you, and it was the doctors who talked to you. So yes, what kind of reception did this film subject have among your friends, family, the greater community when you started first talking about it as you're making this film, or even shooting the film and showing the film?
So the film, even though it's about America in general and California specifically, the movie was actually shot in Bakersfield, California, which is not Northern California. It kind of sits on the precipice of both.
Outside the Bay Area, you mean?
I'm sorry?
Outside the Bay Area.
Outside the Bay Area, yes. And the temple and the locations were all there, generously donated by friends. I had so many people tell me their personal stories or stories of friends that they knew, and the women that actually lost their lives in this process, or the women, one woman that ended up leaving America was so frustrated that she said, I'd rather go back and live in the village with my family than continue to put my body through this. She could afford to go back, and she was received by her parents. Not all women have that option where the parents will actually let them come back to their household in India. So and not only that, when I have had people comment from other countries, other cultures, South Africa, this woman, Nigerian woman who lives in London, who has a beautiful comment on Amazon, where she says that I almost did not make it into this world because of cultural pressures on my mother. So this continues to perpetuate.
So it's interesting. While I was preparing for this panel discussion and to talk to you in particular, I came across a research. So in India in particular, now I'm specifically talking about the research in India. There seems to be some movement saying there's much more equality in terms of the life birth ratio of male children to female children. But underreporting, fake reporting, et cetera, I don't know how many numbers can we believe. But there was a very interesting research that was released by the Pew organization that said that in the US, in particular in immigrant communities, the Indian and the Chinese in particular, when they have the first child, the average ratio of male and female births is very even, right? But when they have the second child, suddenly a lot more boys are being born and much fewer girls. And when the third child is born, the numbers are horrendous, where it's almost like 130, I believe, or some really huge number of boys versus girls being born. So clearly we've imported, and in this particular study, it was the South Asian community and the Chinese out here. And you raised something which is very interesting, that you are of 4 sisters and then you have 3 daughters. How did this subject really, were you aware of this subject before you came across this, or did you grow up in a very gender empowering situation and how have you raised your daughters to? So I'm just really trying to understand was this like topic a bombshell on you, or were you already aware of this, but it did not impact your personal life?
As Indians, we're always aware of that because this happens in India, and I grew up in India. And I remember I have the oldest brother, and then we're four girls. And I remember my father used to say that every time we would announce that a girl is born, that people would say, "Oh my God, how are you gonna dowry?" And oh no, you poor thing, you have another daughter. Oh, you poor thing. And he would say, "Oh, they came with their own karmas, and they're gonna." And he had a very, very positive. My parents had a very positive attitude. And I have a son and then 3 daughters. And so for me, it was like, okay, I've got a healthy baby. I'm in America. Oh my God. Okay, let's deliver this baby. Doesn't matter what it is. And I so wanted a girl when it was my second pregnancy, that I packed everything pink and said, I'm coming home. This child is coming home in pink, regardless of what the gender is. So for me, it was, sure, I knew that this was happening in India, that selective babies were happening in India. But for me, it was a bombshell to find out that this was happening in America, in California, where we were so progressive and educated, and we have access to education. So yes, it was a bombshell.
So did you experience, I would be really curious, like, as you said, people didn't want to talk about it. But once you made this film and now you're a public figure, you're a well-known actor, you've been in many, many films, radio plays, TV, theater, etc., etc. Do people perceive you differently because you've produced this film on female feticide in the US in particular? I'd be curious to know.
They want to know, okay, so what are you working on now? Or what are you gonna talk about now? And how difficult was it for you to talk about this subject? And why don't you make this into a feature film? I have questions like that. For feature film, I just thought it was just too heavy a topic to cover it, to give it 90 minutes, so etc. But people are curious. They want to know what they encourage me to talk about other topics in the South Asian community, because our stories are not really being told. And it's up to us to get out there and tell the stories. And my goal in making this film was really, if I could change somebody's mind, if I could change a woman's mind, a man's mind, because this woman does end up changing her husband's mind. If I could change somebody's mind to say, okay, it's okay to have another girl.
So, this is an interesting one that I wanted to talk to you. So you have a son and you have 3 daughters, and then you grew up with a brother and sisters. In India, this is actually an audience question that we received prior to the event that they wanted to know the answer. So in India in particular, and many other South Asian countries, son preferences could be tied to the economy, right? Girls get married, there's a cultural expectation. They get married and they go to their in-laws' homes. The parents live with the son and the daughter-in-law in joint families. So a son preference could be that, hey, who will take care of us when we are old, right? It's the same thing with the Chinese communities and some of the other Asian communities. So here, has anyone raised this for you? It's in the film you talked about the name. The name is very important. I'm of 3 sisters, and we have 3 sisters, and I and my daughter carry my father's name, which is very, very different, right? And people in India don't know how to react to that. But I was just wondering, is this ever been a conversation that, okay, so daughters get their share, sons are going to take care of the parents, and here, do you think that's an issue that you've come across or heard of?
Well, and in India, so to be fair, in India, not all sons are taking care of their parents. My parents
The hope. It's the hope, right?
It's the hope, right? But my parents came to America. We got them a green card. 3 of us sisters live in America. They stayed with us for a long, long time. And so my brother wasn't completely responsible for them. And then here, the daughters, my daughters have kept their father's last name, Rustagi, as their middle names. So it's not like they're, like you have kept the name. So the name is there. Now, we're not a farming community in America anymore where the son needs to go plow the fields or in Bakersfield, there's a lot of farmers there, but the daughters are educated. They're helping run the business. They're helping run the trucking business of their parents. So the daughters are participating just as much. Public school in California, girls and boys all study next to each other. So and the dowry issue, which was another issue, is not really an issue anymore. My daughters all picked their husbands. I didn't have to give any dowry. So, this is America. It's just.
Do you because I always love to ask people who become role models for the community, and I view you as a role model for the community, the South Asian community and the Indian community in particular. When you talk about a very difficult subject like this, when people look up to you to see how have you raised your daughters, how have you raised your son, what are the value systems that you have given them, and you said that I didn't have to give a dowry, but did it ever enter your mind that are you supposed to do anything about it?
No, because my siblings and I didn't have to pay dowry either, and my parents didn't have to, and they didn't have the wherewithal for it either. So when the value system in our house was, okay, you're going to pick your spouse and you're going to be responsible for who you pick. And so when my son picked his wife, and we didn't expect anything from them either in terms of, money exchange. I mean, to us now in this era, that thought is just so primitive for I mean, am I answering your question correctly?
You are answering my question, and I'm smiling because I want to. I'm so happy to hear you say this because, it's interesting in the Bay Area as a part of our work, and as we go out into the community, sometimes I experience these conversations which make me realize that someone like you and I maybe are not the norm. Where people think the daughters are to be treated separately. And I'll give you an example. And maybe we talk about this when you were raising your daughters and your son. The prom seems to be a big friction point for the South Asian community. And did it ever occur to you that your son should go to the prom and your daughters shouldn't go to the prom? Or
No. I mean, I sewed my daughter's prom dresses and encouraged them just as much as in fact, my son didn't date until much later, until he was in high school. The daughters were dating even before that, because it was not like you can't or you will or you won't. It was like their choice. And the prom was such an exciting part for me. I'd never attended a prom. I was like, yeah, go.
And so you now open up another amazing topic which has a lot of turmoil, turbulence in a large part of the South Asian community, dating. So, I was thinking about the movie that you talked about where, there was a goddess and there was the mother-in-law who was supporting the daughter-in-law, which was also really amazing and I think very, very, very important. And so we have this continuum of the story, right? That there's the issue of having boys versus girls, and then you love your girls, but the girls are sort of in this maybe feminine, they're to be protected, right? And then, you have the Western culture in which we all live, by the way, and we live in this country, and the dating part. So I'd be curious to know if you're comfortable sharing. Did other people say to you, you're letting your daughters date, or they have boyfriends, etc.? I'd love to hear what you heard and what was your response to inspire other people listening to this discussion, so that they can have some prompt responses to these kind of painful questions for their children.
Well, so for my son, as we were learning that the oldest child is always where you learn how to raise the rest of the children. So for our son, we had said, no, you cannot date until you're in middle school, you're past middle school, until you know how to respect, how to talk to a girl, etc. So he kind of, it was like he was in high school before he actually brought a date home. Now we don't know if he was dating.
You may have traumatized him so much, Rashmi, that he couldn't date.
but the daughters had actually boyfriends in middle school and in high school that they brought home and said, okay, he's my boyfriend. And then I had a group of friends. My kids were raised in Palo Alto through this phase, and I had friends who objected to that and said, why would you let that? Why are you? I'm not going to let my daughter. And now I talk to all these people. I talked to a girl who is going through a divorce, who's one of my daughter's age. And she said, I didn't know boys because I didn't know anything because I had never dated. So when I met this guy and I knew there was something off, I thought I will change him. So there's that problem of not having known how to deal with boys or girls to then make a serious decision when you're picking a spouse. I'm not sure if there's a positive side to dating or a negative side, but I chose my battles, and that was one battle I didn't want to fight with my children about, having to fight over dating. It was okay with me.
Thank you so much. I am going to start on the questions because we have, we want to make sure we answer everyone's questions. So Mukta Sharanpani, who's also a Maitri ex-board member, volunteer, long-time involvement with Maitri, actually mentions a movie. I don't know, Rashmi, if you've seen this, Jayesh Bhai Jordar. He made a full-length Bollywood feature film on feticide. And it focuses on its solutions on interrogating masculinity rather than the women's empowerment section. So, there's a fair amount in India in particular, which is being targeted towards women empowerment. Beti Padhao, there's a matching dowry program. There are many things happening in India in particular. But in your view, now that you're doing this and the next film, which we have to talk about before we close and end this session, what would education and empowerment around healthy masculinity look like that? Since you're the mother of a son, you have a brother, obviously your father, your husband are very empowered. Would love to know education and empowerment around healthy masculinity.
So how we raised our children was that everything was equal, that in India, I remember when we were raised with my brother, he would get the lion's share of the laddus or whatever special dish that was being made. But that did give him a sense of entitlement that our children, my son, doesn't have, which was everything is equal, everything is game, everything is fair. And if you are going to private college, then your sister's going. If you're getting lessons, private lessons, everybody's, I'm spending the same amount of money on all the children. All the opportunities that are being available are available to everybody. And I think a lot of people here in America, my peers at least, Indians and non-Indians, have done the same thing. Providing equal opportunity to their children. And the message where my husband, that message came primarily from my husband, was that you have to treat women the same way that I'm treating your mother, that we treat your sisters. You need to know that. You need to treat them. And we're seeing that play out in his life. I mean, he participates just as equally in everything in his life. In his in his family and with his family. So,
and then I assume if he has children, if he chooses to have children and has boys or girls, this is the message he's going to pass. So
yes.
it's 3 generations, right? That
Yes.
are actually changing the way gender equality is done. Well done. Well, so, it's an interesting thing. You mentioned the word laddu. So I have to tell you about this. So have you heard of an organization called Pink Laddu?
No.
Okay. So I came across on Facebook, where as one comes across many interesting and terrible things, this was one of the interesting things. And I would love to run this by you. So I want to hear from you what, as a part of what the journey you've taken to Unborn. So Pink Laddu is an organization that says when you have a daughter, you should celebrate by distributing pink laddus, not yellow laddus. And typically in the Punjabi culture in particular, I'm Punjabi, so I can, talk about what the Punjabis do. People distribute laddus when a boy is born. And so this organization, they've won many awards. They are encouraging and they share some horrific stories of 2nd and 3rd gen South Asian women in Canada and the US on how they are berated, or these are 2nd, 3rd generation women. When they're pregnant, everyone says, I hope you have a boy, I hope you have a boy. And then they have a boy, and then everyone uses the terms which you use to condole somebody on a death, right? And then, of course, they share stories about people who actually distribute pink laddus. And, I've been dying, like somebody should have a baby girl so that I can distribute pink laddus out there. So, I see when you've talked about, you have a massive difference between how you've raised your daughters and your friends, and then these people you've talked to. Do you view yourself as, an agent that for change? Do you as more as somebody who does grassroots activism through your films, and that's why you've started making these social impact movies, which are really powerful? I'd just love to hear your thought process on this.
Absolutely. I have been doing small things to make the change. I write a food blog. I taught Indian cooking, Indian food blog, and then embracing our culture, and yet trying to embracing the Western culture, so that we get the best of both worlds. I have the opportunity and the fortune to be in Silicon Valley and to be able to embrace best of both worlds. And so that I want that opportunity for everybody to have that. I want to spread that message that you need to let go of the biases. You need to let go of these horrible practices that we have in our culture, so that we can live a better, fuller life. I mean, no woman wants to abort. No woman wants to have an abortion and not feel guilty about that, unless, of course, it's health reasons, or she's trying to save somebody else.
And I think that's a very important point, that it's really a balance. I don't think it's a balance, honestly. I think saying that you need an abortion because you're not ready to be a parent or a mother, or your circumstances are not such that you can give birth right now, is very different from being coerced.
Exactly.
Coerced into having a baby of a gender, right? Or aborting a baby where you're welcoming of any gender, right? Any gender. You said when we met, Rashmi, and you had talked about your food blog, and we discussed its life skills, right? And you want all children to know how to cook South Asian food if that's what they wish. But I have a question for you. Many times, this is an audience question, and so many times, women are told, South Asian women are told, you're a woman, your job is to make other people happy at any cost, right? And it's your responsibility to keep the family going. And if you have to have multiple abortions to have a boy, well, then so be it. So this really kind of normalizes gender inequality and really abuse, right? So how do we change this harmful cultural conditioning in your mind as you go through this journey as a filmmaker, producer, director, actor?
is for the men. I think that the education has to start with the men as well, to feel the compassion and the the father-in-law and the husband telling the woman to have an abortion because, hey, no, it takes a toll, an emotional, a physical toll on this woman who is your wife, who's taking care of your children, who's the mother of your children, or who's your son's wife. She's a human being, she's a person. And so I think there's a lot of education that we need to teach our boys just as much as we need to teach our girls to stand up. We need to teach the boys to have that compassion, to have that not just compassion, to be a human being, basically.
I think that the key word you said right there was the human being part of it and education. And I'm going to ask you a question from the audience right now tied to that. So Mamta says that, as a part of the education, did you experience the OBGYNs and the people you talk to in the community, the physicians, talking about science that men are responsible for the gender of the baby? And was this ever a topic that the OBGYNs felt that they could tell the father that, hey, it's you who's actually creating the gender of the baby?
I'm sure. I know that Rahul, Rahul Sharma, who plays my husband, I know that he did. Because he gave me an example of when we were talking one time, and he said, because he has a jovial personality, and he talks very well in Punjabi and communicates well with his patients. And he would say, hey, you understand that you're responsible. So it's not really her. And I'm telling you, I can help you. And da, da, da. And so yes, I know that my OBGYN would tell her patients too, because she was very passionate, and she is very passionate. And she is the one who kind of, urged me to make this movie. And then we sat down several times and talked about her patients, and I incorporated some of those little stories in here. So they do. I'm pretty sure they do. But the ones that want to educate their patients.
Yeah. I mean, I was just wondering if there was any reception. What was the reception from people who are really educated and should know this fact, right? And yet have to be told that it's the man who determines the gender of a baby.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have not had that conversation with these people, because, it was like, I don't want to open that can of worms. So I'm not in a position to say. I'm not a physician. Yeah,
absolutely. No, I thought it would be just interesting. So, we in the US have regressed in many ways. I know we are talking about having women being forced to have abortions because it's not the right gender. And yet here in the US, sadly, Roe versus Wade has been overturned, and now many states, not only is it illegal to have an abortion, but anyone helping you have an abortion is also in jeopardy, right? It's a felony. And I think that anytime there's control over women's bodies, it's never, a yes, no, white, black. It's never a either or. But I think it's a very difficult situation, because I think you have to be very clear. Are you talking about someone's rights, or are you taking away someone's rights, right? And
That's
that wants me to move into your next project, which is a subject very dear to everyone at Maitri. And I would like you to actually talk about the project, and then I would love to know what can we do to help you make that project a reality and successful.
So after making this short film, and while I was making this short film, I was also writing this script about domestic violence. And so this is a feature film script that I have written, and I want to make this movie about a middle-aged Indian woman who is stuck in an abusive arranged marriage. And this is the story of Silicon Valley. We have so many domestic violence support organizations, including Maitri, that have been helping women, educated women, who are stuck in abusive relationships, abusive marriages. This is a story which is an amalgamation of several real stories of friends and acquaintances, which I have written and with the help of a co-writer. The feature film is again, but it's an uplifting story where this woman gets out of the abusive relationship and ends up standing on her feet and finding a way to get out of that relationship. It is empowering. It is a great story. It has lots of South Asian cultural references. I will be playing the lead, and I have a great team of director, producer. It's going to be shot in the Bay Area, and I'm trying to raise funds to produce it, to make it.
So I just want to say, Nandini just posted Rashmi's Future Films fundraising. It's called designedbypreeti.org. And then there's a link there to donate. Please be generous. You've seen the quality of Unborn. I want to tell you that when Rashmi and I first met and she told me about, I learned about this film, I must have sent about 200 emails to people saying, please go to Amazon Prime and please watch this movie right this minute. And then people emailed me saying, oh my God, it was devastating. And I said, yes, everyone needs to be devastated. But I know you're making a positive film with the domestic violence one. And I know you've been talking a lot about it. But I want to tell the entire audience that Rashmi and her husband will be at the Maitri Gala on March 11. And if you want to meet her in person, I suggest you go to the Maitri website and buy a ticket to the gala right now. So she is gracing us with her presence there.
Thank you so much.
Of course. It has been such a joy and pleasure. I have one last question for you. I know people always say, when you meet somebody and you tell them you made this film, and I'm talking about people who get defensive and they'll say, well, it doesn't happen in our family, it doesn't happen in our culture. What do you say to people when they say it's not my problem?
It doesn't happen. Oh, are you kidding? No, really? No. And why do you want to tell a story about South Asians in that light? Why do you want to shed the dark light on, or why do you want to bring up this issue? And I have to say, well, because this issue exists and somebody has to talk about it, and it does exist. And I've talked to so many OBGYNs, so I didn't make this up. It's there. It was brought to my attention by an OBGYN, and it was just as surprising to me as it is to you. But it exists, and it's not just South Asian culture that it exists. It exists in other cultures, because I have heard from other people. Same thing about the abuse. My next project, several women have told me, why do you want to talk badly about South Asians, about domestic violence? And it happens everywhere. Yeah, it happens everywhere, but who tells our story? We need to know that, yes, it exists, that it happens, and that domestic violence is not when you're just punched in the face, that it's not just physical abuse, that there are so many subtle ways of domestic abuse that I want to feature in this film. And then I have another issue. So my character ends up falling in love with a Black man and actually knowing about love. And so when I tell people the story, they say, why a black man? Why a Black man? And I say, well, that's the reason a Black man. People's biases, and this comes from Indians primarily. The reaction from Indians, the reaction from non-Indians usually is, great, you're making a story, you're telling this, great. But it's Indians who say, why do you want to? We have so many prejudices and biases that we just can't hold on, just don't want to be out there. And it's just, and that empowers me, that every time somebody says, don't, I want to make it more. I just want to tell the story even more.
Well, I have to say, Rashmi, I am a fan of yours, and I want to say to you, you go, woman. You're a single woman powering this message to audiences that Maitri may not even reach sometimes, right? I want to thank you so much. We are so lucky that you're a social impact filmmaker and you chose these topics. Really deep, deep gratitude. And thank you for coming today and sharing your film. Again, everyone, please go to Amazon Prime and watch this film. I know we had technical difficulties. And Rashmi, thank you for your graciousness and your time. And if we don't see each other before the gala, I am so looking forward to seeing you at the gala.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, everyone who came. And please support the film. And perhaps we will have a conversation next year where I will be talking to you about my feature film.
Absolutely. I think we need to do the premiere. Maitri should do the
Yes.
premiere. I'm bidding for the premiere right now, saying we should do the premiere. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who stayed and came on a Sunday afternoon. I really appreciate it. Please spread the word. We can only change our society if one of us takes responsibility and says, it is my problem, it is our problem. We are the ones who will change our community. Thank you, everyone, and good evening. Have a lovely Sunday evening.
Bye.